Hi, Abel. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Let me see. Okay, I can hear you now. So,
Okay.
so this is how it's gonna work. I'm gonna introduce you. You're gonna be able to hear me, and then I kind of like try to do everything together so that it's like easy and smooth and
Mhm.
really no cuts. So I'm gonna introduce you, and then I'm gonna bring you on, and then we're just gonna get started. And basically, it's just gonna be. I want to talk about the musical. I want to talk about how you develop the story, conversion therapy, your thoughts on conversion therapy,
Yeah.
finding the right therapist, how things have changed now, any advice like that you have for someone who has questions about their journey and questions that they might want to ask a therapist. And some of those questions that I always talk about with people is it's okay for you to say, I want to talk to a therapist who is from my community. I
Yeah.
want to talk to a therapist that understands what I've been through. And,
Mhm.
and so either going to a therapist who provides these services and they are very much not just informed but aware and participate in the community, I think is important, right? A piece
Yes.
that is very important. Or someone who identifies as being from the LGBTQIA plus community.
Okay.
Things like that. It's
Yeah.
gonna be things like that. Okay. So
Great.
I'm gonna
This
remove you and then bring you back on. Go ahead, tell me.
it's only audio, right?
It's video and audio.
Oh, girl, let me change my shirt.
All right. I'll give you some time. I'll give you and
Okay,
okay.
let me stop the camera real quick. Just
Yeah.
for just 20 seconds.
Yes. You're good.
Okay,
Okay.
better.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna remove you, bring you back on after, okay?
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mental Health 411. I am your host, Nancy Paloma Collins. I'm so excited for this week's um, guest, and his name is Abel Alvarado. He is the writer of Arena, a house musical that's directed by Rigo Tejeda, and it is currently playing at Casa 101 in East LA. And I'm really excited about giving you a sneak peek if you haven't seen it already. And let's bring Abel on here to see what he has to say about this story that he wrote. Okay, everyone. So give me 1 second. And here we go. Hi, Abel.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. I am actually really, really good because today I turned 50.
Oh my goodness. Happy birthday. I feel like
Thank
I
you.
should have known, so I could have brought something on here for you. Let me look around. I don't know. Uh, yes. A big kiss from my
Thank
phone here.
you. Thank you.
Besos, birthday besos.
Thank you
Oh
so
my
much.
god, happy birthday. That's a big one.
It is. Yeah.
How
I
do you
was
feel?
Oh, I feel I didn't think I was gonna feel like this, but I feel like I got somewhere. Like I got
Oh,
somewhere, you know, because there was a time in my life I didn't even think I was gonna make it to 30, you
yeah.
know? And here I am, and I feel like, yeah, I just talked to my mom and I said, "You no longer have a baby, you have a 50-year-old." She said, "You're still my baby."
Mhm. That's beautiful. It's
Yeah,
beautiful, like, to still have our parents and to just so much to be grateful for
yeah,
nowadays, right? Yeah, I
yeah.
understand that, and so happy birthday again to you.
Thank
Tell us a little bit about this story. I think it's very special, and I wanted to bring you on here so that you can give us a little synopsis of what you have written.
So, just a little bit of background. I was at closing night of Circus and Arena in 2015, December 31st, and I was standing on the balcony with my cousin and some friends and another cousin, and we were all talking about how the first time we went to Arena, and my cousin, the first time he went, he was there like when he was 14. My friend Ray was there when he was like 15, 16. I was the older one. I didn't go until I was about 21. Well, yeah, I was around that age. And so we were just talking about how we had all kind of, met all of these people that we were saying hi to. And then I looked out on the crowd over the circus, and I heard someone say that there was about 10,000 people there, and I was just blown away by it. And then I walked into circus, and I couldn't walk, and the countdown began for New Year's, and it was probably the most exhilarating New Year's I have ever felt. And as I was walking throughout the night, I kept hearing story after story, older people, people my age, people younger. Like there was a 21-year-old. He was saying, "I can't believe this is my first time here, and I'm never going to be able to come here again." And I just knew that this was a historical moment, and it needed to be captured, and it needed to be treasured.
Mhm.
And I started thinking, well, how would this sound and look? And I thought, well, a documentary is kind of an easy thing to do. Documentaries are hard to make, but that's the thing people would think of immediately. But I thought, you know, and I looked over at Arena, and I was like, that's the very first gay club I ever went to. That's the place I went to. And the moment I walked in, I was like, no, girl, you're not just artistic, you're gay. Like I remember feeling the agency of being able to say that, which
Mhm.
was very hard. And it was walking into that place and seeing people my age who were brown, who were from my neighborhood, from my high school, it was just, I remember that feeling and how unique that feeling was to me. And I thought, well, where's the story? And that's where it kind of blossomed, and it started from there. And I thought it was going to be just like this 10-minute musical that I was going to write for, because I produced the Brown and Out Theater Festival at Casa 0101. And I
Mhm.
thought, this would be a great little twist on everything if I write a 10-minute musical. And I kind of wrote it, and I showed it to Josefina Lopez, who's the artistic director.
Mhm.
And she's the genius behind Real Women Have Curves, which is now going to Broadway. um,
Yes, I heard about that.
yes, yeah, congratulations to Josefina.
Congratulations.
And and she said, "This isn't a 10-minute musical. This is a full-length play, and we're gonna write it, and I'm gonna help you outline it." And we met up at her restaurant, and it was about 6 hour session that I had with her in
Mhm.
outlining I mean, in between we had tacos and enchiladas and
Of
whatnot.
course, proper.
Of course, like good Latinas, right? And I outlined it, and then she said, "Get to writing."
Yeah.
And that's where I started formulating the story. And I really wanted it to be um, my friend's story, my people that I love, people that I knew. I wanted to incorporate their stories and really, you know, um, honor that.
Yes, yes. And for those that don't know, can you give us a little bit of background of what Arena was? So I think that there's a generation, of course, of people that don't know what Arena was. And it was like during those days that we didn't have Instagram, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have MySpace. MySpace was developing. And so it really was a space where we all came together as people of color specifically, right? And we it was a space for us to know one another, to get to really know who we were and establish our personalities and really be comfortable with who we were. But you tell us what Arena was. Yes.
So, Arena is the second club, the second iteration of Jean Lapietra's creation of Circus Disco, which
Yes.
opened in 1974, which is a story in and of its own, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they opened in 74, were extremely successful, more successful than anyone would have thought, more than they thought. And it was this mecca of a club for Latinos specifically, brown
Yes.
people, but for anyone who wanted to come. But because Ed and Jean had experienced racism directly towards Latino people, they really wanted to create a space, and they did. And you ask anyone in LA or even from around the world who was around in the 70s and they were Latino, they went to Circus.
Yes.
Yeah. And so when they acquired the building in front of Circus, which was an ice factory, they acquired it in about 1985, and it took about 5 years to build it into what is was known the arena, which was an ice warehouse converted into a mega club.
Mhm.
And it was the arena, and it opened in 1990, which was my senior year in high school. And I was in high school, and I was hearing, totally in the closet, and I was hearing people talk about, oh, there's this new club opening in Hollywood. And, I was in Baldwin Park, which is about 25 miles east of Hollywood. So
Mhm.
Hollywood may has well been a world away
Yes.
because, you're out there, and even though it's just right down the 10 freeway, how are you going to get there?
Mhm.
But it opened my senior year in high school, and it took me a couple of years before I went. And finally, when I went, I was in college, and I remember walking in with my straight friends into I had never been to a gay club. I didn't even imagine that many gay people existed, let alone that many Latino LGBT people existed that were just being so free and open. One of the first images I remember is I went up the side ramp, and there was two pelones kissing.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, immediately I was turned on, right? But then I thought, wow, I d these look like guys from my neighborhood.
Yeah.
And then I remember seeing, two really beautiful girls just dancing freely and just loving each other. And I thought, and they were both Latina girls that looked like my cousins,
Mhm.
and it was just such a freeing first moment,
Experience. Mhm.
experience, and impression. And
Yes.
of course, then you hear the infamous words, "How many Latinos are in this house?" by the infamous and legendary DJ Irene. Of course, I had never heard anything like that, and let alone in a gay house,
Mhm.
And to hear the crowd just thunderously roar of thousands of
Yes.
voices just cheering back and being proud in their Latinidad, in their brownness, in their gayness, in their queerness. It was an exhilarating experience.
Yes, yes, and I think that every person has their own experience and their own version, and it's so compelling to hear all the stories of that first time that a
Mhm.
person walked into arena, but I think the thing that we have in common is just like that that strength, that power that arena brought to our lives and
Yes,
to our experiences and becoming who we are today, right?
complete.
And talking about a little bit about the story and how this is related to mental health, because it's all related to mental health, of course.
Mhm.
And the story talks about something that you went through. You went through a process. I think only a certain generation of people can understand the impact of the AIDS pandemic and what how that impacted our lives personally. And I could say, like I say to so many of my friends who I went to a gay high school. I went to Eagles Academy, which was one of the gay high schools that was available to teenagers during that time. I think there was one in New York and there was two in LA, and I went to one of those. And so unlike so many of my friends, that go to high school reunions. I mean, I did have friends from high school that were at a different high school, but this is where I felt at home.
Mhm.
They can go back and they can, celebrate their lives and what they have become in unity together. I don't have that.
Mhm.
There's so many of my friends from high school that unfortunately died due to AIDS, due to their parents not accepting them. They were thrown out into the streets. They needed to survive. How would they have survived?
Yep.
They were exposed to so many things.
Yep.
And unfortunately, many of my friends, many of my high school friends died before the age of 18,
Mm,
died before the age of 21. And so, this your story, like so many other stories that are related to Rena are so inspiring and touching because wherever there is a story of empowerment and what we have gone through and where we are today as people, it's amazing because we don't just do it for ourselves, but we do it for everybody else that has
exactly.
didn't have the opportunity to be here today.
Exactly. And I think that's very important that you said that, because I did touch on that story. There was a there. At first you think arena fun, right?
Yes, yes,
But when we left those doors, we still had to face the world. We had to face our families. We had to face reality.
yes.
Um, the great part was spending those 5 hours where you lived your whole life in those 5 hours, where you walked in, met someone, fell in love, fell out of love, and kind of
Heartbreak,
had
all the beautiful
heartbreak all in
experiences.
one night, right? And then
Yes,
you go on and you went on with the rest of your week. But each time you left there, you left with a little more strength to
yes,
face the world. And I know it took me a while to be a raving queen up in there, and then going back to reality and hiding that, to the point where that raving queen could not be held in anymore, because I knew all these other people out in the community, and I was seeing them and becoming friends and becoming empowered. But it was because we were meeting there, and that same feeling was transcending past those doors, past
yes.
that front ramp, past Las Palmas Avenue, past Santa Monica Boulevard, to our neighborhoods, to our barrios, to our locales, to our schools, to our colleges, to our campuses, to our families. And that was the beauty of the story. And but also life was happening. In during this my research, about the time, it's funny, you live through it, but as you're living through it, you kind of don't pay attention to the world happening around you, right? You just see things, and you're like, well, that's part of the world. But what I discovered, and my friend Edwin Alvarez, who's also an MSW, I think he teaches over at Northridge, I believe,
Mhm,
and he did this paper, and I asked him about the research, and he pointed something out to me that was very alarming. That between 1993 and 2003, HIV infection rates among gay Latino men rose by 130%.
mhm,
And I remembered back to that time, and I was like, yeah,
mhm.
I remember it was almost like a constant thing, finding out that this friend had tested positive and that friend had tested positive, and so is feeling sick, and so doesn't want to be seen anymore. And you would see them at arena, and then 3 months later you would ask for them, like, I don't know, I think he died,
Yeah,
or girl, the big A took him out. And it was alarming, because I was in my 20s. In your 20s you're
mhm,
not supposed to die. You're
yeah,
supposed to live, and if in this heteronormative life, you're supposed to live and go to college and start your career and start having kids and have that perfect little house in West Covina. That's what
mhm,
you're supposed to do. But my friends, that wasn't the reality of a lot of us. there
mhm.
was no there was no marriage equality, and there was no if I fell in love with someone and we started living together, and something happened to me or my partner, their family could just come in and take everything,
Yes,
because I had no rights. uh Gay people had no equal rights, and we lived through that, and we kind of just accepted the world, that was the world we were in, right? And there's even a point in the show where Miss Martin says, imagine gay people getting married.
yeah,
And the three of them just kind of look like, but yet here we are now with
mhm,
marriage equality, right? Um,
mhm,
so yeah, and here we are now, where we just celebrated, or not celebrated, but we just solemnly remembered on World AIDS Day, right? All the
mhm,
people we lost, where this generation has never met somebody with full blown AIDS in a hospice, with
mhm.
Kaposi sarcoma, with a pneumonia, because medicine has, you know, moved so swiftly. But there was a time when that wasn't so.
Mhm. Yes, definitely, and I think another part of the story is that you actually experienced, conversion therapy.
Mhm. I did. I so it was, it was the 90s, and
Mhm.
in the show, in the story, I talk about how, like, meth was everywhere.
Yes.
It was everywhere. It's
Normalized. Mhm.
Yes, and especially in the Latino community. And I
Yes.
tell people that, meth didn't become this newsworthy um thing until gay white men started, like, it was being traced that a lot of gay white men were being infected because they were doing meth and having, unabandoned sex. But that wasn't until the 2000s.
Mhm.
But in the 90s, when I came out, it was like a common thing, and a lot of my friends were addicted. And I tell people it makes sense because, meth is dope.
Mhm.
All the homeboys have had dope for decades, right? So if that's the first drug you're exposed to, in the hood, in the barrio, in your area, that's the first drug you're going to do. So it
Yeah.
becomes normalized. And even if you're gay and you start being in this gay scene, which sometimes requires you to be up all night to party and have fun, it's around it. And that little habit just becomes a normalized addiction.
Mhm.
And so I experienced that. And to the point where it really took over my life. And it was in the late 90s. And I OD'd.
Mhm.
And I ended up in a hospital, and I knew that I needed to do something. And my family knew, and I was put in it took a couple of months for me to come to grips with it.
Mhm.
And I was sent to an inpatient, like, detox type of place. And I was in there for a couple of weeks, and then I started an outpatient program.
Mhm.
And it really, really helped. But in that time also, in reevaluating my life and everything, I grew up in a Pentecostal home, an apostolic Christian home where, being gay is an abomination, as the
Mhm.
church says. And a lot of, my addiction and everything was kind of blamed on that. And it was because of that that I thought, well, I need to try everything. And there was a conversion group called Exodus
Mhm.
at the time, and I went. And girl, it was the saddest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it, it's what I take from it is, I mean, because I try to look at life in a very positive lens.
Mhm.
But what it did for me is it reaffirmed my gayness.
Mhm.
And that's what they weren't supposed to do, right?
Mhm.
But I saw how detrimental it was to other people.
Traumatizing and just
Traumatizing,
damaging. Mhm.
damaging. And I met people there who had been going since the 1980s.
Mm.
And here we were in the 90s, like a decade later, in the mid 90s, and they were still holding on to that hope
Mhm.
that I'm not going to be gay anymore, if I just keep coming here, or if I meet a woman here. And there were people that met each other and were living in a heterosexual relationship, and it was clear that it just wasn't working. But
Mhm.
what I saw, and I like in the show, I met a friend there, and he was the only other Latino there.
Mhm.
His name was Bobby. He was older than me, and he literally told me, he said, these are the only people that I know that are still alive,
Mm.
because everyone I knew died of AIDS
Yeah.
in the 80s, and we were all scared, so we started coming to groups like this, thinking that there was something wrong with us.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he said, but I want you to know I don't believe what they say. He says, I just need to know that some of the people I knew were alive, which is
Mhm.
traumatizing in itself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And and he was just, one night he just said, "You just really want to go to the club, huh?" I said, "Yeah." And so there we go, to the club. But what I did learn in that process was how damaging that this trying to normalize hiding who you are
Mhm.
probably the most traumatizing thing I have ever seen anyone do to someone. It's
Mhm.
imposed. It's this imposition of you're not okay, you're not good enough, you're not
All of
well
it.
enough,
Mhm.
you're an abomination. When those words are used to literally tell you, and you see these, it was mainly gay men. There was some lesbian women. There was like one trans person, I think, and it was I it I still think of it, and
It
it
makes, yes,
saddens,
it brings those emotions back,
yeah,
yes.
it saddens me that that a place like that is sanctioned and
Mhm.
people, that it's allowed, you
Yeah,
know, and
at that time. Mhm.
yeah, at that time, and it was just very hurtful. It was
Mm,
hurtful. It was,
mhm.
I can't think of no other word but hurtful and damaging.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we just like I think that one of the important things to point out is that most of those people, if not all of those people that led these groups, are now living their lives
Yeah.
after creating and breaking people
Profiting.
down and
Yeah.
profiting from just breaking people down and
Yeah.
really damaging lives. And now they're living their lives, right?
Yeah. I mean, hooray for them, but they 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 really damaged a lot of people.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And talking about that and like, things and changes that have happened and there's so many things, and now I think that there's so many resources and opportunities for people to that are teenagers, children, and adults who are in a process of sitting within themselves and asking themselves, like, who am I? What is really happening to me? I don't feel complete. I don't feel full. I don't feel happy, right?
Mhm.
And they want to go to therapy. What are some I always say to people that it's so important for a person to find the right therapist, someone that you can speak to and you feel very comfortable with, someone that is doing the work that is that is like there's like something there
Mhm.
that speaks to you, right? And so some of those questions, I always tell people like advocate for yourself even before you start services. And if you have that one session and you just know that that therapist is not for you, it's okay to say, hey, you know what, I don't think it's going to work out, and keep looking.
Yes.
Because it's not like just because you have that one person, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the person, right, that you have to stick with. And so asking questions. What are some things that I think that you might think are important for people to ask or to look for when looking for a therapist?
I would say I am a big strong supporter of mental health therapy. I have benefited greatly from it. Um, and throughout the years, even before I was in the in a recovery program, years prior, when I was about 15, I went through a phase in my life, and it was because I knew I was gay, and it was the 80s, and I kept seeing AIDS everywhere, and I knew I was gay, and I was associating the two, and I thought that
Mhm,
that's what my life was headed towards. And I ended up having to be put into some mental health therapy. So I early on, I just talking about things really helped. And but what I did learn, what I have learned is that it really is, your care is in your hands, and you should look for what it is that you need in a therapist. And I always, one of the first things I do, especially when I'm going through a creative process, I know that I need mental health support. And this going through this process, I sought out a mental health therapist, and through my insurance. And
mhm,
I was very specific, and I want somebody who is from the LGBTQ community, who identifies, who proudly says I am a gay man, or I'm a lesbian, or
mhm,
specifically that says that, or that has been a part of the community.
mhm,
Because then, you're able to talk freely about, certain things, that, a heterosexual person might not quite understand, no matter how much training they might have, but the lived experience along with the professional experience that a therapist who is from the community will have insight. You know, it's that culturalness, right?
Mhm, the
So
cultura too
la
also sometimes
cultura,
that's
exactly.
important, yes, mhm.
And which is why I'm so happy that you're a therapist, because my goodness, it is much needed in our comunidad. And it's just being very frank in what it is that you're looking for, because you want to confide in someone, right?
Mhm,
You're opening yourself up to really talk about things that you might not talk with anyone else.
yeah,
So you want to have that confianza.
mhm.
Um, uh, I also do that with my physicians.
I was gonna say you wanna do this with everybody, your dentist, you
Yes,
like
I
everybody.
I do it with my physicians, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because years ago, I had a new doctor, because he was right down I had moved over here to Silver Lake. And there was a doctor's office right down the street, and I thought, "Oh, how great. I'll just walk over there," and I had really good insurance. And I walked in the first time, and I met my doctor, and he was this older gentleman, and he seemed really cool at first. And then I said, "I'd like an STD screening." And he looked at me like I had just punched him in the face. And he
Yeah,
said, "Why?" I said, "Because I'm a sexually active gay man."
mhm,
And again, he looked at me like, and he said, "Well, I I
yeah,
don't deal a lot with, venereal diseases and the homosexual community."
yeah,
It was like, wait, venereal diseases, that's like
mhm.
terminology from the 70s, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
That's when you knew you were like, "That's it.
that's it,
Thank you so
yeah.
much for your services, but I am no longer
You
coming
So
back
I
here."
literally opened, what is it? The magazine, one of the gay magazines, and I
Yes.
found Dr. Carlos Gonzalez, and he was right down the street from me too. Openly gay Latino physician. That was probably the best doctor I have ever had, and I kept him until he moved a few years ago to Palm Springs. But not only
Mhm,
was he gay, but he was, Latino.
mhm.
And it was just such a great experience to come in and talk to him, and he would ask me straight, and he was a little older than me, so he would ask me, like, just straight up questions that a health
Yes.
professional should be asking, especially if they know that you're part of the community.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so it's like lesson here is don't be afraid to advocate for yourself, to speak up,
Yes,
to say, this is just not working out and kind of go on to the next person. And
exactly.
that is the important piece here. And one of the things that I just want to bring up for anybody out there who, it doesn't matter, trans, women, men, everyone should know that AHF provides medication, that they do screenings, assessments, and that they also have the 72-hour pill for PEP that's available. I think a
Mm,
lot of people don't understand and know that there is a
mm,
pill
mm.
out there that if you're in a situation where you have unprotected sex and you are in the belief that maybe you are vulnerable to something, that you are able to take PEP, which is a 72-hour pill. I think it's also available at Planned Parenthood. I'm not too sure about that, but I know for sure that AHF provides that medication.
That is, like, it's a testament of how far we've come, right?
Right? Yes.
that
Yes.
that you could take this pill, that if you just weren't sure, or you don't know what happened, and it's
To
great that
talk
we're
to
able to
them.
talk about it like this, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes. Yes.
maybe you were too drunk and you don't remember, or maybe you did get high and you don't remember if you had unprotected sex, and you exposed yourself to HIV, but there's this that's available now, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
it's it's um it's it's something to keep us healthy.
Yeah, so that's definitely something that I did want to bring up. I just thought maybe taking this moment to like say, "Hey, wait a
Wonderful.
second, there's that." So that's one thing. Another thing too is like there's so many like stories within the stories, and of course, I just want to point out, of course, I'm so excited. Like just I you wrote a little piece of like when Irene and I met, and so there's a character, right? It's like Jocelyn Talia Sanchez. I love her name, by the
Yes.
way.
Yeah.
She's so cute and
Yeah.
perfect, and when I saw her, I was thank you so much for having Irene and I during the opening night. It's playing from November 29th to December 19th,
Yes.
and tickets are selling out, so people
Yeah.
need to if they wanna see this musical, they need to like jump on it quick because
Yeah.
tickets are selling out every night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yes.
And it was just so touching to see her playing that small role. I was like, wow, it's like it's me, and it's so weird because it is really me. Thank you so much for that. And to see Irene in that, like, just kind of like seeing yourself from that outside perspective,
Uh-huh.
so interesting, Abel.
You know, I really wanted to honor love in this story. And when you and Irene shared your
The
meeting story,
moment.
I said, "God, that is so it's beautiful." And then to see that you're here together today, and I knew it had to be a part of that story. And when you're crafting a musical, when you're there's so many components because it's they say that the musical is the most collaborative art form on stage
Mm,
because you have a book writer, myself, you have a lyricist like Gabby Maldonado, and then you have a composer like Ben Larson. You have three artists with three visions that are following
mhm.
the blueprint of what I wrote. And then I'm also a composer and I'm also a lyricist, but I'm having to step back and letting them. And but you start weaving all of these stories together, and before you know it, you have a show. And I'm so happy that your little love beginning of your love story is kind of we were able to throw it in there just perfect.
Imprinted there. Yeah, it's so perfect. So thank you for that. And I just want to say anyone who wants to experience a story of love, of like music, and just getting out there again, right? And like seeing what we've been through and the journey of a man who has gone through so much in life and has had loss, but triumph and power and strength. And it's so amazing that you shared the story with the world. And I just want to say thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Everybody, it's out there. Arena the musical playing now for the next, I think, 3 weeks when this is going to
Mhm.
be listened to, and I think it's coming back, right? It might be coming back.
In the spring, yeah, we're looking for to have it produced fully. Even though it's a workshop production, it's a pretty produced production with costumes and lights and everything. But we want to tell the world, look, we did this on a shoestring budget.
Mm,
Imagine if we had an investor who had the kind of money that said, "Here, go for it." We could really, really make this work. And I think they said opening night, we want to take this to Broadway, right? Because that's where
oh, that
musicals
would be
all
amazing.
head towards. But I just want to take it so that the world can see it. And
Yes,
that we know that we were here, that Nancy was here, that Irene was here, that that Miss Martin was here, that this place existed. Yeah.
yes, 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 and so many dedications to so many people that we have lost that are not here to see this production. Miss Martin, my friends Marlo, like there's like so many friends that I could name that are not here any longer. So
Mhm.
just thank you to is it Council Member Gil Cedillo,
Yes.
who was also part of the production, right, of making
Mhm.
this happen, and
Yes.
Josefina Lopez. Is there anybody else that you think should be
Um,
acknowledged?
TNH Productions, which is my production company, and in that production company is Conrado Terrazas, Felipe Agredano, Rigo Tejeda. We've been doing this for about 12 years, going on 12 years of
Yeah.
creating musicals in a genre that normally does not have a lot of Latinos in it, but we've looked to boost it up. Casa 0101, Josefina Lopez, Emmanuel Deliage, El Centro del Pueblo,
Yes.
Cedillo. It really takes a lot of people coming together, and
Yeah.
that's the most honoring thing, is that people believed in it, that
Hmm.
this story should be told, and that that you and Irene were present in there in the story writing process, but also their opening night, and that we're featuring Irene's vodka, Hot House vodka.
Oh,
It's celebrating our people. You know what I mean? It's
celebrating
celebrating us,
everything. Yes.
and so I really am happy with with all of that. Mhm.
Thank you, Abel. Thank you for being on Mental Health 411. I hope that this episode was valuable to so many people out there. If anybody has questions regarding my services, please go on to palomatherapy.com. And I am your host, Nancy Paloma Collins. See you all next time. Thank you, Abel.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.